Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Emmitsburg Town Meeting for the night of Monday, January 13th, 2025. Sorry, I forgot the hammer after all that. Let me try again. Welcome to the Town of Emmitsburg Town Meeting for the evening of Monday, January 13th, 2025. At this time, I invite you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to take a moment to remind everybody to please silence their cell phones. Make sure it's on vibrate or silent of any online media, rings, dings, notifications, and so on. Thank you very much. Future meetings that are coming up. We have Citizens Advisory Committee meeting coming up on January. Well, that's tomorrow night at 7 p.m. here in the town office. Board of Commissioners workshop is going to be Tuesday, January 21st at 7 p.m. in the town office and on Zoom. There's a Planning Commission meeting on January 27th at 7 p.m. in the town office and on Zoom. And our Board of Commissioners meeting for February will be on February 3rd at 7 p.m. in the town office and on Zoom. Town staff or commissioners, are there any meetings that are missing from this list? Are we good to go? All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. Moving on. We're looking at approving the minutes for December 3rd and December 16th. Oh, wait. Yes. The only thing, I have a very small little change, and that would just be on page 6 of your agenda packet for the December 3rd meeting minutes at the very top line. We're under, it was part of Mayor Davis's comments where it says that Maryland will have a $2 million shortfall this year. I think it's, what did you say? 2 point something billion. So we just want to have that change because it's a lot worse than it looks. And we want to emphasize that, right, Mayor Davis?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So that's going to be updated. Having said that, I trust you had a chance to look over the meeting minutes. Would you like to take these one at a time for approval? Sure. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes for December 3rd, 2024 with the correction to the state shortfall?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions?
Commissioner Hoover, you can't, since you were absent. Sorry.
Oh, is there somebody else who would like to second? Wait, who? Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. So Commissioner Hagan made the motion, seconded by Commissioner Sweeney. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? One. That's Commissioner Hoover. So motion carries for approving and Commissioner Hoover abstaining. Okay. Moving on to the agenda or the meeting minutes for December 16th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes as written for December 16th, 2024?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Were we all present for that one?
Commissioner Sweeney was absent.
No, I was not. Is that the one that was one? Not?
Yeah.
No.
So we do have to abstain
I
for that one.
abstain.
Okay, all right. Let me try that again. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions?
Aye.
Thank you. So motion passes for approving and Commissioner Sweeney abstaining. Moving on to the police report.
Good evening. Hope everyone had a good New Year holiday. Deputy Bartholow with the December 2024 last monthly report for the year. For staffing, there was 2 of us. We had 5 holiday annual days and 2 sick days. Some trainings, Central Square training, which is our new report system that we got trained on. So that went active this past week. For some special events, we had a Christmas tree lighting, which went well. Deputy Honaker did the shop with a cop with the sheriff's office, which was really, really cool. We both had active assailant training, and I had a day at the gun range to do some rifle quals. No fleet issues this month. Handle 161 calls for service, 3 arrests, 20 traffic stops. Calls worth highlighting. The assault from November is still under investigation. I'm still working on that one. A little bit more dig into the statistics. Warnings, 22 warnings, 7 citations, 0 zeros, 10 crashes in town this month, which is probably more than average, I'm sure, due to the deer and rush traffic for holidays and all that stuff. The rest broken down, one criminal, 2 traffic, which brings 3 total for the month. We had 11 walking patrols, 5 talks cards, 12 school safety checks. And then we had 5 disturbances this month, 5 suspicious activities, 4 noise complaints, 2 domestics, and 2 assaults. And then next month, all the year-to-date ones will start back at 0. Any questions?
Any questions? No? No.
Thank you all.
Thank you and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Okay, next is the town manager's report. I turn to Ms. Willetts.
Good evening. This is the manager's report for November. I'll just highlight some key areas. Related to streets, we had a contractor blacktop the water leak patch in front of 706 West Main. Staff put up the Christmas decorations around town and in front of the community center. For parks, we winterized the restroom buildings and concession stand in Memorial Park, winterized the dog park, and assisted with the turkey trot event. Related to wastewater, we treated an average of 486,710 gallons per day, while we consumed 280,074 gallons per day, which meant approximately 42.46% of the wastewater treated was wild water in the month of November. We had no spills of untreated sewage, and we did not exceed the plant's design capacity in the month of November. In November, we received 2.3 inches of precipitation for a deficit of 3.7 inches over the last 6 months, being June 1st through November 30th. Related to water, at the time of this report, Rainbow Lake was 2 inches below the spillway level at 16.4 feet. It is currently at the spillway level. It has recovered. On page 15, you'll see the well depths and then the monthly average well depths for 2023. Page 16 for the well depths of 2024. For water production and consumption, we produced an average of 280,332 gallons per day and consumed 280,232, which meant the amount of backwash water in the month of November was roughly 12.31%. Trash pickup will remain Mondays in the month of January. On page 17, I highlighted some of the meetings I attended. Just 2 noteworthy items. Staff conducted hydrant flushing the week of November 18th without incident. And we conducted fire hydrant maintenance and put anti-seize on all the threads on the fire hydrants around town. That's my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Ms. Willetts? Commissioner Turnquist?
Are the bathrooms and the dog park closed for the winter?
The water's been winterized. So yes, the bathrooms are closed and the dog park is open. It's just no water.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, we are moving on. Thank you, Ms. Willetts. The grant administrator report.
I'll highlight some of the things that she has here. She has 17 active grants. I'll just highlight a few. The new bathroom and concession stand was delivered on December 13th and was supposed to be installed the same date. Unfortunately, the crane got stuck in the mud. And so now the contractor is researching some options of using a larger crane to get it set. So that's been delayed. I don't have a timeline yet. The water treatment clarifier, it is up and proceeding with construction. The deadline is November 14th of 2025 for that project. A contract amendment was sent to the contractor for the Rainbow Lake parking lot with a new deadline of April 30th of 2025. The Fall Street water line, contractors is going to finish replacing the line along Flat Run during the winter and then move back to the residential area in the spring. Related to, what's the next one I had here? For the North Seaton Avenue water line and Green Street, design, we had a kickoff meeting on design. Design will last approximately 1 year, and the construction is roughly 18 months. Ms. Shaw is looking for additional grant funds to finish that project. And then Rainbow Lake Trail, that project will be completed April 1st. And I think that's about it. We were awarded the grant for Cedar Avenue Community Garden expansion. No public announcements been made yet. And we also received additional funding for North Seaton Avenue water line in the amount of $350,000.
It's great news. Yes. I assume then with the community garden expansion grant, that would be something that the town staff would work with Mr. Deathridge on.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Any other questions, comments? No. Nope. Okay. Hearing none. Moving on. Thank you again, Ms. Willetts. Town planners report.
Good evening. This is a town plans report. During the month of December, we processed a couple of zoning permit applications. Well, one zoning permit and one street cut. Under development updates, Federalstone is under construction. Recent activities include installation of overhead doors and storefront windows. Excuse me. Framing of interior office walls and completion of most of the concrete slabs and masonry stair tower. They passed their most recent county inspections as well. For Seton Village, we're awaiting signatures from the Frederick County Health Department. We have received the check for forest conservation already, so that's moving along. I'll move on to Emmett Ridge. We met with the traffic engineer to discuss the previous traffic report and a future one. And then another thing to add is the Brookfield Phase 5 improvement plans have been received by the planning office and it's under review. The developer is proposing 10 residential units. I'll move on to Planning Commission. The plan, just to note that for the future meeting, Brookfield Phase 5 improvement plan will be on the agenda for February and not January. So I'll move on to grants. We were awarded the Community Legacy Grant from the HCD for the amount of $75,000. New application forms have been published already. So the application is open for homeowners in the sustainable communities area. And I've listed some of the meetings that I've attended. Thank you.
Any questions? No? All right, thank you. And I'm going to, let's highlight the town operations specialist report at this time.
Happy New Year, everybody. So this is the town operations report. In December, we assisted with the Carriage House Christmas, which went over very well. Current projects, I'm working on a vacant property ordinance, which will be brought to the board another month or two. Working on the Welcome to Emmitsburg packet, which is about done, working with the nonprofits and the churches on that as well. Under the mayor's direction and his initiative, we are working on a monthly hot meal program. We had our first committee meeting this evening, and again, that will be addressed at a later time. It's in the very early stages. And working on the Main Street program, I'm going to have a presentation tonight later in the agenda. I did meet with Vicki Grinder, got some more information if she is the top person to speak to. Also, the other completed projects, I'm sorry, I skipped over the emergency action plan, which will be later on the agenda, and the community events calendar is up and running. A little bit further back was the turkey trot. We were able to finally announce that we were able to raise and donate $2,000 to the Seton Center. So that was a very good success there too. And that's the end of the report.
I see food truck Tuesdays.
These, that's on there, very limited. I'm just looking into, obviously the farmer's market's ongoing, time capsule I'm looking at for next year. And looking at food truck Tuesdays, maybe later on in the year, try to have that something in town, generate some business, get some food trucks in. So again, very early stages, really nothing to report.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Questions, comments? Yes, Commissioner Turnquist.
The community events calendar, I remember seeing a text alert maybe come out about
Mhm.
that. And I know there's a link for it on the town website, but it's different than the town calendar, correct?
Correct.
And who updates it?
Everybody who wants to be involved in different churches and civic organizations each have their own logon. So they log on and post their events. So it's from church services to Lions Club to whoever wants to post on it can. And I can give, additional login information to any other groups. I keep putting it out there and we've got a very good response. And each organization, church, group, what have you, can share that calendar to their site. And then they can also, once it's on their site, pick and choose what they want to have on there. So even though there might be 15 different categories or organizations, if one church posts, they don't have to put all the other churches on there as well. It's really customizable. And so if you're involved in a church or group that have not had access yet and would like to, just pass word, they can email me or call me and I can give them the login credentials and walk them through how to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay, moving on. This time we're moving on to commissioner comments. Start with Commissioner Hagan.
Just to go back to, as I said earlier, the state of Maryland's had a pretty significant budget shortfall this year, and Frederick County Municipal League with the elected officials got together in end of December and tried to discuss some of the things that are coming. And I just encourage anybody, if you have a project that's near and dear to your heart that you don't want to see get cut, reach out to your representatives in Annapolis. And because all this is going to flow downhill, it may start there, but the budgets and money coming back to the towns is also going to get hit on all this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Turnquist.
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Sweeney.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Hoover.
I'm good. I'm good for now, right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As far as comments, I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday, great Christmas, a happy new year, and wish you only but health and happiness in this coming year. And it sounds like we all need a really good dose of health from, the tissues and the sniffles we hear. So hoping that we all get through that soon. Also, I will second what Commissioner Hagan said as far as the budget. It's pretty bleak, honestly. So I can understand how there's going to be some hard decisions coming, and we are going to have to look as a town what we can do from within in case the money starts to not come our way anymore. Having said that, I'm passing it along to Mayor Davis.
Good evening. I just have one thing. Just want to talk about, I'm sure most of you saw the letter that I sent out last Thursday pertaining to snow removal and the snow emergency plan. I know to some people it doesn't make much sense, but if we don't enforce this policy and we have a major snowstorm, the town could become paralyzed. If our people don't, our workers don't have any place to move the snow to, the streets will become impassable. Emergency vehicles won't be out and about, and it's not going to be a good thing. So I guess these little snowfalls are the ones that we, as they always say, practice like you play. And so these small storms are getting us, we see where our shortfalls are. And there are some people that are just thumbing their noses at us and said, you know, we're not moving. So with that being said, starting immediately when the snow emergency plan goes into effect, we will be, we'll do everything we can do to get people to move their vehicles. But if they don't, we will be giving tickets. And if there is a major snowstorm coming, we will go right to towing. So we need to take this seriously and be prepared for that big storm. Because, you know, it's not only affecting emergency vehicles, it affects our businesses also. Because the quicker we can get Main Street cleared off, the quicker the businesses can get opened up after the storm. They're already closed down during the storm, so we're affecting our business people, and we need to take care of that. So if you get any phone calls or flack about it, give them my phone number, and I'll take full responsibility. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Okay, bless you. Moving on to public comments. There were two people at the beginning that are now scratched out. I assume that was by their choice. Blaine and Lynn, is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, I spoke to them before the meeting and they were.
Oh, okay.
they
All
were
right.
good.
So that just leaves Diane Walbrecker. Come on up. You have 4 minutes. And make sure to turn on the microphone. State your name and whether or not you are in Emmitsburg.
Diane Walbrecker, Main Street, Emmitsburg. I wanted to comment during the discussion of the emergency operations plan, if that's okay. Can I hold my comments till then?
Yes.
Okay,
You can.
great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. And Diane, if that slips my mind, please just flag. You're right here, so don't let me. All right, thank you. Okay, administrative business. We have the 2024 Holiday House and Business Decorating Contest results. What we have is for most traditional, in first place, we have 1417 Ramblewood. In second place, 7 Zanella. And honorable mention goes to 4 Irish Town. For most creative, first place is 53rd Federal, second place is 115 DePaul, and honorable mention is 13 Zanella. And then moving on to best business, first place Carriage House, second place Emmitsburg Tattoo, and honorable mention goes to Father's Footsteps. So congratulations to everybody. I didn't realize until this year that you didn't have to sign up to participate. It was, you know, looking at everybody who generally puts out decorations. So hopefully that was a surprise to some of those properties that you were recognized for your festive decor. So thank you very much for participating. Ms. Willis, did you have anything else to add to that? Are we?
I believe the checks will be cut this week after the following the announcement tonight.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And moving on to the consent agenda, we have 3 things on our consent agenda. Is there any reason, commissioners, why we cannot take these 3 as a group? Is there anybody who may need to abstain, or is there a point that you want to discuss?
Take them all as a group.
Take them all as a group?
Good.
Okay, so we have 3 on the consent agenda. Is there, so I'm looking for a motion to appoint Carol Berger to the Citizens Advisory Committee with a term of January 13th, 2025 to January 13th. Is that supposed to be 2027. Also to appoint Gail Fowler to the Citizens Advisory Committee with a term of January 13th, 2025 to January 13th, 2027, and accept the resignation of Carolyn Miller for the Parks and Recreation Committee.
I'll make a motion to accept tonight's consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Any abstain? Okay, motion carries 5-0. And moving on to the treasurer's report, Commissioner Turnquist.
Yep, this is the cash activity as of December 31st, 2024. Cash balance as of December 1st was $7,944,196. Deposits totaling $2,376,807. Withdrawals, $1,658,807. The top 10 checks are there in the middle of the page. And the fund breakdown as of 12/31/24 in our general fund, we have $1,965,893. Capital projects, $454,605. Stormwater management fund, $1,224. Our water fund, $366. Is that correct? ARPA, $2,462,781. Our sewer fund, $3,777,327, for a total of $8,662,196.
Thank you. Any questions on the treasurer's report? Okay, hearing none, we are moving on. Planning Commissioner report, was that?
There was no meeting last month.
There we go. That was fast. Check. Thank you. Any questions on that? Nope. Good. Moving on. Agenda item number 1. We're looking at fiscal year 2024 audit presentation.
So our auditors are here via Zoom. Are they on, Jess? Okay. I will turn it over to Michelle and Addie then.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us this evening and allowing us to present the audit results to you virtually. Since we are seeing you and not necessarily what's up on the screen, is the audit dashboard being displayed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. To get started, my name is Michelle Mills. I'm the audit principal. With me this evening is Addie Blickenstaff, the audit manager. We're going to be presenting the fiscal year 2024 audit results. We're going to start with government-wide, and we're going to give you some financial highlights. As you've heard me say numerous times, management is responsible for the financial statements, and we as your auditors are responsible for issuing an opinion on the financial statements. Under bullet point number 1, you'll see that an unmodified opinion was issued, which meant that the financial statements were fairly stated in all material respects, also known as a clean audit opinion. As part of the audit, we do look at internal controls, and we did identify one material weakness and one significant deficiency. And there's going to be more details to follow a little bit further in the slideshow. We found all transactions were found to be properly supported and recorded. There were no new accounting policies adopted by the town, and the application of existing policies had not changed. Under bullet point number 5, you'll see that there were 4 material misstatements that were noted as a result of our audit procedures. I'm not going to go over each of them because that will be covered in one of the audit findings, but here it is outlined for you to get an idea as to the nature of those audit adjustments. We encountered no difficulties in performing the audit and had no disagreements with management. And the audit report and the uniform financial report were filed with the state of Maryland on time on October 31st. When you're looking at the audit report, as you will recall, we present government-wide financial statements as well as the fund level statements. So this is the highlights on the government-wide. Overall, there was an increase in net position of just over $631,000. The town's cash deposits were fully collateralized as required by state law. During fiscal year 2024, this town contributed just over $103,000 to the Maryland State Retirement and Pension System on behalf of the employees. And at the end of fiscal year 2024, the net pension liability was just over $926,000. Total debt payments due within the next year, approximately $181,000. The total debt outstanding was just over $5 million. The town is expected to collect under the lagoon lease approximately $582,000. The Stormwater Management Fund, which was created in fiscal year 2024, had very little activity. The total expenditures were just over $4,600. At the end of fiscal year 2024, about $2.8 million remained unspent of the ARPA funds and is recognized as a deferred inflow in the water fund.
Here is a quick snapshot of the government-wide total assets. Again, as Michelle mentioned, government-wide is comprising both, well, actually all funds of the town. So general, capital, water, and sewer. If we focus at the bottom first, you're going to see government-wide total assets were $44.5 million, which was a 1.8% or $801,000 increase from the prior fiscal year. As shown in the bottom part of the pie chart, the dark blue, capital assets net of the related accumulated depreciation represents the largest slice of the pie for the town, which is 73% or about $32.7 million. If we circle around towards the right, the town has investment balances, which comprise 2 CDs of $1.4 million, restricted cash of just over $1 million, cash and cash equivalents of $7.8 million or 18% of the total assets, receivables, which are amounts due to the town of about $1.6 million, and then a small other asset balance of $39,000. On the opposite side, here is the town's total liabilities across all 4 funds. Total liabilities were $7.4 million, which was a $729,000 increase from the prior fiscal year. In the light turquoise color, you're going to see those debt obligations that Michelle mentioned of just over $5 million, comprising 68% of the town's total liabilities. If we go towards the left, the net pension liability is $927,000 or 13%. Accounts payable and accrued expenses, which are those liabilities liquidated shortly after year end, were $1.4 million or 19%, and a small $22,000 balance of other liabilities.
The next slide, we're going to shift our focus to the fund level, and we have a few financial highlights as it pertains to the general fund. The difference between the assets and the liabilities is fund balance, and at the end of fiscal year 2024, it was just over $1.7 million. When you're looking at the financial statements, we are required to report fund balance into a number of categories. Your non-spendable portion was just over $23,000, which represented prepaid expenses. Your committed fund balance, which was just over $93,000, which is earmarked for employee payout benefits. And then the remainder of $1.5 million is unassigned. The general fund total revenues were just over $2.5 million, and that was a 9.5% increase over fiscal year 2023, or about $218,000. The total general fund expenses were about $2 million, and that does exclude the transfer to the capital projects fund. And that was an increase of about $220,000 or 12.2% over fiscal year 2023. Overall, there was a deficiency of revenues under expenditures of about 21,000 compared to an excess in the prior year of just over 88,000.
Here we can see that $2.5 million of revenue that Michelle mentioned compared to the prior year. So the darker blue color is fiscal year 23 as compared to the lighter blue fiscal year 2024 across relative revenue categories. So as you can see, the town's taxes remain fairly comparable, just about 1.2 to 1.26 million. Intergovernmental revenues, which comprise a lot of the grant resources and highway users, of about 590,000 to 619. Again, service charges remained fairly comparable, and then other revenues saw a slight uptick from 217,000 to just over 300,000, mainly due to an increase in interest rates earned from fiscal year 2024 to fiscal year 2023. Here are the expenses of the general fund laid out by the relative department on the bottom. So you can see general government expenses increased from 674,000 to 754,000. This was due to an employee paid time off payout, as well as a higher salary for the replacement during the year. Public safety expenses increased from 249,000 to 343,000. And again, this was due to a $93,000 increase in the contractual officer that the town utilizes. Public works expenses remained comparable, same with recreation and culture. And then the transfers did increase from fiscal year 23 of 408,000 to about 515,000 in fiscal year 2024.
Now we're going to switch our focus to the capital projects fund. The capital projects fund balance was just over 854,000. 39,000 is restricted, and that's related to impact fees and the emergency warning system. And the remainder, 815,000, is assigned for future capital projects. The capital projects fund total revenues were 308,000, a decrease of about 237,000 from the prior year, or 43.5%. The capital projects fund total expenses were 677,000, a decrease of 446,000, or 39% from fiscal year 23. Overall, there was an excess of revenues over expenditures of just over 145,000, compared to a deficiency in the prior year of about 171,000.
Similar to the general fund presentation, here are the capital projects funds revenues for fiscal year 24 compared to fiscal year 23. If we start at the left, the intergovernmental revenues, which represent the grants received in the capital projects fund, did decrease from about 401,000 to 283,000. In fiscal year 2023, there was the license plate reader project, as well as there not being any POS awards or money in fiscal year 24. The miscellaneous category in the middle was $142,000 in the prior year and only $24,000 in the current year. In fiscal year 2023, there was $113,000 collected for the Chesapeake Bay and the Silo Hill project. And then, as I mentioned, on the general fund side, the transfer amount from general fund increased from $408,000 to $516,000. If we look at the expense side of things, general government expenses took a significant decrease from $413,000 to $111,000. In fiscal year 2023, there was a lot of expenditures related to the stormwater management project and GIS updates. Similar for public safety, decreasing $144,000 to just over $25,000. As I mentioned, the license plate reader project was completed, and there was also a business district project during the prior fiscal year. Public works did increase from $339,000 to $444,000. This was due to the streetlight project during fiscal year 2024. And then the last category is recreation and culture, which also decreased from $229,000 to $98,000. As in fiscal year 2023, the town completed the Silo Hill basketball court.
The next several slides are going to switch to the business type activities, and we'll start with the water fund. The water fund had a net position just over 6.6 million. 6.3 million of that was net investment in capital assets. 259,000 was restricted for maintenance and improvements, and the remaining balance, just under 61,000, was unrestricted. The water fund operating revenues were just over $1 million, and that was an increase of almost over 498,000 from fiscal year 2023. And as you may recall, this was attributable to a $300,000 allocation of the ARPA funds to offset expenses. The water fund total operating expenses were $793,000, and that was an increase of about 21% over fiscal year 2023. Operating revenue for fiscal year 2024 was just over $216,000, compared to an operating loss in the prior year of just under $144,000. Overall, there was a change in net position of an increase of $458,000 after the non-operating revenues, which included interest income, rental, as well as a capital grant, and the related expenses for interest.
Here is the comparison of the operating revenues year over year of the water fund. As we can see, the charges for services increased from just under $505,000 to just over $706,000 as fiscal year 2024. We implemented the base and usage rate increase at the start of the fiscal year. As Michelle mentioned, $300,000 was approved to be used of the ARPA funds for operating grant revenue to offset some operating costs that were incurred in the year. And there was a small amount of miscellaneous income of just over $2,100. On the opposite side of things, here are the operating expenses of the water fund broken down by natural categories. So personnel in the left-hand side increased slightly from about $252,000 to $274,000. Operating expenses of about $238,000 did increase by about $120,000 to $354,000. This was due to an increase in needed supplies and repairs and maintenance, and this was covered by that $300,000 operating grant from the ARPA funds. And then your depreciation expense stayed relatively comparable year over year.
Switching to the sewer fund net position was 19.4 million. 15.7 million was net investment in capital assets. Restricted for maintenance and improvements was just over 259,000, and the remaining balance is $3 million as unrestricted. The sewer fund operating revenues were just over 1 million, and that was a slight increase over the prior year of about 4.3%. The sewer fund's total operating expenses were just over 1.5 million, and that was about a 6.5% increase over the prior year. The operating loss for fiscal year 2024 was just over 495,000 compared to an operating loss of 445,000 in the prior year. Overall, the change in net position was a decrease of about 395,000 after considering the non-operating revenues and related expenses.
And our last two bar graphs relate to our operating revenues and expenses of the sewer fund. Here we can see the revenues similar to the water fund. Our charges for services also increased due to the rate increase in fiscal year 2024 from $945,000 to just over $1 million. The grant income, which is relatively small, operating grant income, which is relatively small for the sewer fund, decreased slightly from $41,000 to $8,500, and there was no miscellaneous revenue during the year. Then on the expense side of things, personnel stayed relatively comparable in the low 400,000s. Operating expenses saw an increase from $340,000 to $407,000 due to emergency pumping and hauling, as well as some needed repairs and maintenance. And the depreciation expense of the sewer fund remained comparable, just under $697,000.
As mentioned in the start, we are required to look at your internal controls over financial reporting as the audit is performed in accordance with government auditing standards. And we're required to communicate in writing to you any matters that are believed to be a material weakness or a significant deficiency. So the next 2 slides, we will review the findings.
The first finding was considered a material weakness, and this was related to internal controls over grant billings and reconciliation. As Michelle mentioned at the beginning, there was some material audit adjustments that were detected as a result of our audit procedures as it related to grant revenues. The first one, we had to reduce grant revenues and related receivables by $49,000 for grant reimbursements that were not yet requested in the capital projects fund, as well as to reduce grant revenues by approximately $273,000 for amounts that were not collected within 60 days after year end. And this was also in the capital projects fund. So if we skip down to the effect, overall, there was a decrease in grant revenues amongst the capital projects fund of $323,000, which means that for fiscal year 2024, the capital projects fund incurred $323,000 of related grant expenditures with no offsetting grant revenues. So we recommended that the town review its current policies over your grant billings and amend as necessary to ensure that your grant funds are being requested within a timely manner after the expenditure has been occurred. If the grant allows for progress billings to occur, it would be the best practice of the town to bill as the funds are expected to help the cash flow issues and not hold off until the project is complete. In addition, we recommended that the town receive proper training as it's determined necessary to ensure your governmental funds are recorded on the modified accrual basis of accounting, which is required to minimize future material audit adjustments. The second finding, which was a significant deficiency, so a step lower than a material weakness related to internal controls over your capital projects cost. During our audit testing, we identified missing year-end accruals for fiscal year 2024 capital project services that were performed, as well as the corresponding retainage that had not yet been recorded. We had to accrue $21,000 of additional construction in progress costs at year end, as well as recognizing the $21,000 of associated grant revenue for that specific project, and this was in the water fund. And then in the sewer fund, we had to accrue $66,000 of retainage payable for the Creamery Road project. It appears that these entries were an oversight during the financial close process, and as a result, additional capital project costs and related grant revenues had to be recorded as noted above. So we just recommended that the town review and strengthen its internal control procedures to ensure all your capital project costs and associated retainage are accrued and recorded in the correct period, preventing similar oversights in the future. So that is the end of our presentation. We are here for any questions.
Thank you. If you could just give us a short moment to digest, don't go anywhere.
Sure thing.
Commissioner Hoover.
I just have one question. So on the general fund page, sure, general fund balance was 1.7 million at the top of the page. So we have non-spendable of 23,946 prepaid expenses, committed of $93,026 employee payouts, and then the unassigned 1.5 million. So is that just from a fund balance or rollover that is restricted money for expenditures, or?
By nature of the definition, unassigned means that there are no restrictions with it. And again, the difference between the assets and the liabilities represents the fund balance. So short of the 2 items, non-spendable and committed above, the remaining balance is unassigned for any purpose.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. The dashboard helped out very much over the actual audit.
Thank you. Any, Commissioner Turnquist?
As a follow-up to that, so is that stating that we had 1.5 million left at the end of FY 24 in the general fund? That's not what that means.
No. Michelle, correct me. That's just the difference between our liabilities and our assets.
It's
So-
cumulative. Yeah, it's cumulative. It's not the result of a single fiscal year. It's the cumulative effect.
That includes our assets. Okay, so we technically don't have 1.5 million sitting in the bank as a rollover from FY 24.
Correct. Correct.
Sorry, Michelle.
Sorry. Yeah, fund balance does not equate to cash.
Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to verify that.
I wish.
Commissioner Hagan?
On the receivables balance of the 1.6 millions, what's the aging on that?
I'll have to look more closely. I think a lot of that, and I can look real quickly, is most likely your fourth quarter water and sewer service charges that were billed, representing the April through June, which would be collected rather quickly after year end. If you give me a second, I should be able to see that.
Which page are you looking at, Commissioner?
I was just looking at the pie chart that showed the receivables on it's the fourth page for the government-wide total assets.
One up here. So about 400,000 of that is related to your service charges that represent the fourth quarter activity. So I don't know specifically the aging without looking into more detail, but can follow up with you. But I would expect that, you know, the town doesn't have a super lengthy process on collecting your service charges, as well as in regards to the additional detail. If you give me a few minutes, I can probably pull that for you if anyone else has questions in the interim.
Also, receivables would also include real estate taxes, which also get
Yes.
collected fairly quickly, as well as personal property tax and those sorts of things as well. So our aging is not too far extended. It usually turns over pretty quickly.
I was hoping there wasn't
Yeah.
anything sitting out there. And the other
No.
question was, is there an rolling R&I balance every month?
I'm not sure exactly what you're asking.
We've received not invoiced.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we all had to pause and think, what's the acronym for?
Yeah, and I live in that INR and R&I world.
Yeah, the other significant piece of that receivable is just to follow up was related to requests for reimbursements for your grant awards. So some of those could be longer than others to collect on, but you know, the town does expect to collect all those requested grant funds. So that was the second largest piece.
Under the water and sewer fund, it says restricted for expendable maintenance and improvements, 259,000. Is that tap fees? It's the audit dashboard for the water fund, the financial highlights page.
Yeah, I'm pulling the actual audit report. That is related to, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, surcharge fees that were implemented eons ago that were to be restricted for specific purposes. The town no longer has that type of surcharge. If I can tell you the correct.
Well,
Yeah, so-
actually, I'm looking at the audit report, and that I'm looking at page, and again, I'm assuming you guys have the entire audit report. I'm looking
Page
at page
39.
15. Oh, I'm looking at 15 where I'm breaking it, where it's broken out. The water fund has restricted for maintenance and improvements of 259,000, and I think the slide for the sewer fund had the same dollar amount. Did it not, Addie? I think the sewer fund should.
Oh, got it.
The sewer fund should have been 745,500 to agree back to the audit on page 15. Apologize for that.
But detail on those balances can be found on page 39 of the audit report in note 11. It details those out.
So again, are those tap fees, Mrs. Willits?
No, they were surcharges that were established Commissioner Hoover.
Many
15
years ago.
At
20
least.
Years ago.
Probably close to 20.
And then the board did away with surcharges. That was in addition to your water, utility fee and your connection fees. It was an additional charge.
Correct.
So are these old revenues from prior years, or can we move those funds into unrestricted?
They are old. Because like I said, they got away with that like 20 years ago.
Right. They were restricted by ordinance.
Right.
Restricted by ordinance because of the conditions of the sewer and water issues, that we had a surcharge on top of the additional tap fees and connections. So they are restricted for.
But we spend more money than that every fiscal year. Wouldn't we have expended older funds first?
They're restricted for specific. So.
Right, well, it says expendable for maintenance and improvements. That's pretty wide.
I think by ordinance, correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember, I think they're restricted for.
I did the research on it and I talked about it several meetings ago and I can't recall off the top of my head. I'll have to go back and read. I have all my notes on the surcharges, but there were absolutely things that were set forth by the board that it could have been spent on. But I'll look into it more and I can get back with everybody.
And we did talk about this with the auditors at the time of the audit, when we were looking at the footnote and such, and we did agree that we were going to research this further this year to see if it could be moved. So by the end of this fiscal year, because we just want to verify that the expenditures were spent on what they were set aside for specifically, and verify that there, the change would be correct to move it.
Yeah, I think they were for replacement. So
yeah,
when the pump station was done, you probably could have used some of that, or even when the sewer plant was done, and different things at the water plant. I think if I remember right, they were done for more replacement of equipment or the plant itself.
Yeah, to echo everyone's comments, I would suggest that a review of the ordinance be taken a look at, because it was very specific as to the nature. So if we incur those types of expenditures, it would be okay to release, as long as we make the definition for which the money was originally restricted for.
Yeah, I can report back because I did do a bunch of research on it. I just don't have my notes handy.
So that was 259,000 for the water fund, and then the sewer fund, 754,000.
Yeah, 745, 500.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a few very small questions, and this may not even be for the auditors. This might be just something we'd have to look into and come back. But for the $93,026 for the employee payout benefits, that's what we hold in case somebody resigns, for example, correct? And then like their unused days.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So do we hold that somewhere that it would accrue interest? I know we're talking pennies here, but.
It's more of a matter of where it's reflected on the books. It's not like it's actual money sitting aside in the cash. It's, again, just like with your fund balance, it doesn't necessarily equate back to cash in a bank account.
Okay. All right. Perfect. And then looking at our revenue and more of the detailed reports, we have a couple different rental properties that we generate, not a large amount of revenue, but some revenue. And I guess this isn't so much for the auditors. Is that something that we should review as a board at some point, is whether the rental properties, we reviewed what we're charging for those rental properties? As far as I know, we've had an increase with Christ Community Church, but I don't know about the other rental properties that we have out. And is that something we want to take a look at moving forward?
Yeah, I think we need to have a workshop in the next couple months to talk about all of our properties, what we have and what our income is, and see what we want to do.
Sure.
We actually had Brandy do.
Yeah,
that.
she did do a,
She did
she
that.
did do a study and has that in.
Right.
So we started the legwork on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For rental properties or, oh, okay.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Brandy. And thank you, Ms. Willits and Mayor Davis. So that will be a potential workshop or agenda item coming up in the, okay. All right. And then this one is more for the auditors. At the end, when you made your recommendations, as far as internal controls over grant billings, it looks like for the cause that some of this might be outside the town's control, depending on, you know, it says the town is at the mercy of the funder on some of these projects. So are there instances that can be tightened up that are within our control? Or is, I mean, I'm sure it's depending on the project itself.
So I'll answer it real quick and then I'll let Michelle jump in. This is something that we've been working on, fine tuning the grant reimbursement process the last, I think, 3 years since it's been brought to our attention. For Ms. Shaw to provide the accountant the grant information with the information sheet that tells you how much the grant is, how much we expect to be in reimbursed. So we've come leaps and bounds in the last 3 years. Unfortunately, sometimes we are at the mercy of the grant funding agency. I'll give you one example. We've been waiting on a grant reimbursement from a federal agency since May. And roughly over 300,000 in grant reimbursement that we're still waiting for that was submitted. So a lot of times it is out of our control, but Kim and Maddie are really moving forward and fine tuning it. So I think we've made good headway.
So some of this probably wasn't a shock because you know that some of this is out of your control.
Right.
Or like you're just waiting for the other party to cooperate, so to speak. And I would imagine too that as Maddie has continued to get some pretty large grants for us, that this is ballooned into something. It's a good problem to have, you know, to be able to manage that money.
But as I mentioned, she's got 17 grants and we were in the practice of not submitting reimbursement until the project was done. Some grant agencies like that, some don't allow you to submit, but when we can submit, she's starting to submit for more reimbursement throughout the project.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything else, Michelle? I'm sorry.
No, Kathy, I think you did a great job and there has been improvement. And the only thing that Kathy and I have spoken about too is often when during the process, it does make it difficult if they say wait to the end of the project because it does hamper the town's cash flow. So I had just suggested that maybe when you're meeting with your funder that you express the concern and maybe there's some concessions that they can give you because again, some of the projects that are very large, they certainly can't expect the town to front load every single project and wait until it's complete before getting reimbursed. So kind of use it as a negotiating tool, like.
That's a good idea. Yes. Thank you. And thank you to all the work that you've been doing to work on the grants and tightening that up. Does anybody else have any questions? Commissioner Turnquist?
When we front load expenses for, let's say, a water project, do those expenses, and we're waiting on the grant money, are the expenses paid from the water fund or are they paid from the general fund? And oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were getting ready to answer.
They're paid out of the water.
They are
fund.
paid out of the water fund, yes.
Okay, so we'd be at a deficit there for that project until the grant money is received.
Correct.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you to our auditors for being here virtually with us tonight. And thank you to the town staff for preparing this for us. It was very detailed. I think the dashboard, like Commissioner Hoover said, was very helpful and allowed us to synthesize that information. But the detailed report was helpful as well in case we wanted additional information. So thank you.
Yes, thank you guys for letting us share. Also, I want to give a big thank you to Kathy and Kim. Fiscal year 2024 was Kim's first full year with the town, and she was able to complete the audit and get it filed on time, which hasn't happened for the town in the past couple of years. So big kudos to Kim and her team. And yes, unfortunately, we had a couple adjustments that we had to share, but as Kim learns and we'll be learning, we don't expect these to continue.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you, Kim, for all your hard work. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Enjoy the evening.
You too.
Good
Thank
night.
you so much. Okay. All right, moving on from the audit presentation, we're looking for approval of ordinance 25-01 to amend Title 16, Chapter 16.20 improvements, minimum requirements for storm drain pipes for consideration. You good? Yeah, you want to do it? You can do it. Right.
Hi, so this is for the approval of ordinance 25-04 to amend the title 16, chapter 16.20. So as the town code stands right now, it doesn't allow for corrugated polypropylene pipes or CPP pipes or high density polypropylene or HDP pipes for storm drains. So the purpose of the proposed text is to add these two materials to the list of approved materials. And we also got input from RKNK, and they said that our code is outdated and suggested that the text be changed to what is being proposed tonight. So add the CPP and HDPE while keeping the reinforced pipe as an approved material. And another requirement that's been added is that that pipes meet all Maryland State Highway Administrators standards for quality and safety. So updating this code will modernize the code. So staff suggests approval.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, commissioners? No?
Motion.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance 25-01 to amend Title 16, Chapter 16.20 improvements as stated in the agenda? Can we do it that way? Yes, as stated. Is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 25-01 to amend Title 16, Chapter 6.20 improvements, minimum requirements for storm drain pipes for consideration as presented tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoover. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Commissioner Hagan. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Motion carries 5-0. Next, we're moving on to approve the Town of Emmitsburg Emergency Action Plan. And Ms. Walbrecker, did you want to come up first or after the presentation?
Maybe have the presentation.
Sure.
first and some of my questions may be answered.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Hello again. Just so there isn't, I think there's a little confusion, to try to clear it up. This is the emergency operation plan. This is for during, prior, but mainly during an emergency that we have to update. And I apologize, Ms. Willetts, is it every 2 years, every year?
It has to be updated every year and then approved every 5.
That's it. It is. Okay. And I know there's been some talk. I've had this discussion with Commissioner Turnquist and with Ms. Walbrecker about the recovery aspect of an emergency. This particular plan is what the county requires, and it's the operation plan. So it doesn't really include any of the recovery. This is during an emergency. And from last year's emergency operations plan, there have not been any changes. I've been in contact with the county. The only changes that were made that were needed was staffing or personnel notifications during an emergency. And that's way at the back. I'd have to find the page, page number 29. And just, we had some personnel changes. Other than that, for what the county requires us to do, everything remained the same in that. Do you have any questions? I know, Commissioner, you thought you might have some.
Yes, are we ready for questions?
Yeah, well, there really isn't much to go over. It's the same as last year. Everyone's had a copy. I believe it's the mayor and Miss Willets that will have to sign it, and then we file it. But we're not going to go over every.
I would add that this is part of the county's emergency readiness program.
Yeah.
So this is one of their steps that kind of piggybacks the county's emergency readiness program. And the county is getting ready, and correct me, Brandy, if I'm wrong, they're going to update theirs this year.
Correct.
So then they will look to see what their updates are and if ours needs any updates. But it's more about your incident command systems.
Correct.
And what you do when a disaster or an emergency.
And who to notify.
Yeah.
And I have been in contact. They have a new director over there. And we're also going to be setting up some training and some roundtable discussions, throwing out scenarios that hopefully will be in we said the spring. I'm waiting to hear back from them.
Okay, do you happen to have a physical copy?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. The only one I had was what I reviewed online. So
Right.
my notes are just kind of brief versus.
And then,
Thank you.
There you go.
So there are separate emergency operations plans that deal with strictly water and our sewer that are separate from this.
And, regarding like a dam or a dam break and who we need
also
to.
have one emergency action plan for the dam as well.
So is it okay just to kind of go through the questions?
Sure.
Okay. Page 3. Item number 7. It says join information center, and I was wondering if that's supposed to be joint.
If there is a typo, I sincerely apologize.
No
It is,
problem.
yeah, it should be joint information center.
Okay, that will be corrected.
Okay, and then throughout the document, we reference the Emmitsburg Ambulance Company. So we should probably change that to just leave it to be Vigilant Hose, right? Because they were merged. Okay.
I apologize for that.
No, don't apologize. This is 5 years old, so there's going to be changes.
Well, I went through everything and apparently
I missed it.
well, and also
Go ahead, you can say it.
I didn't realize they changed names.
So page 5, letter H, town residents and businesses can expect to use their own resources and be self-sufficient for at least 3 days following a significant disaster event. I thought maybe in the future we could put something out to residents or have information sessions, because I know my household doesn't have an evacuation plan. And I know
It's a good idea. And then we could talk about food and water and
That could be part of your training
absolutely.
required. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's somewhere I have it written down. I think September is Emergency Preparedness Month.
Yes.
So maybe we could do like a campaign,
Okay.
some sort of campaign, for the residents, how to prepare, what to do.
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of information online.
That's a very good idea. Thank you.
And then still page 5, letter L, upon request, the county, state, or federal government will provide outside assistance if local capabilities or resources are overwhelmed. I was wondering who's authorized to request those services.
The mayor and the town manager.
Okay. And it may say that further into under.
I believe that it does
responsibilities.
under responsibilities closer to the packet.
And then, let's see, page 6, number 6. Town organizations tasked in this plan are expected to develop and keep current SOPs. So each department has to have their own SOP. And I'm assuming we have those SOPs in place.
Yes, I've been working with the water and sewer department And as far as all right,
Anything in Public Works?
I'm gonna double check with the county by if they mean. Let me just write this down. But yes, the other one is in the works with Public Works. That's been done. Jared is just going over that. I'm gonna check with the county on that because in our buildings, we all have like evacuation plans and where to go and what to do. I'm wondering if that is what they require, or additional, if it's just our
internal or.
Yeah. So I will check with the county.
Okay, and then is there annual training for staff and or the town council?
We're working on, that's what I'm working on right now.
Okay.
There isn't anything that's required annually, but I did check into the different training. And yes, that's what I'm trying to get set up for the spring for staff and for council.
Okay. Yeah, because I noticed under page 15, it listed town council responsibility.
Right.
So it'd be nice to be trained.
Yeah, that is in the works.
Okay. And then page 26, it looks like the plan is, and I think we mentioned this, is going to be reviewed annually.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna go over it with a fine tooth comb because there's a lot of things that need to be updated and we do need to be prepared.
Yeah.
Much better than what we
have been.
You saw what happened in North Carolina. So
Right. And again, this is with the county wants it's just basic responsibilities. But
who does what?
Right. But as the mayor said, we do need to come up with something other than this operational plan, which would include recovery, which you and I have spoke about, and Ms. Walbrecker and I have discussed as well after the fact. So that is something that I think will need to be a joint effort.
I think the recovery is included in the county's emergency readiness program. Like I said, this is just one piece of their program. I think the recovery is a second part of that, which the county could be able to help with that.
Okay. And again, I have been working with the county. They have a new staff has switched over, and we're working on training and more information it's in the works.
Mhm.
So I will make sure that you guys are included, and I will make the changes on this. And thank you for catching it. I didn't even catch the vigilant hose.
And then have we, I guess as a town, identified our vulnerable populations that would require additional support if there were an emergency?
What we have right now is anybody in the area surrounding the dam, if we had a dam break or things like that, we have all of their information, and that is something that is in the hands of the Public Works. It's completed. It's just being checked, double checked. And in that we have all the residents that would be in that quote unquote danger zone, the addresses, the residents, phone numbers, backup, alternate phone numbers, that how are we going to get a hold of them? And so we do have a list compiled, and it is in that operation plan with Public Works.
Does the fire department have people that would require a list of people who would require additional assistance, people who are disabled or
no, we just
homebound?
no, not unless they contact us. We do know people that are in need of oxygen and things like that, but we pretty much the plan there is to we know the senior housing units would require special attention and things like that. So they are prepared for that, but we do need to have a better plan.
Yes, because
we need to have a better plan.
And our plan right now, the only thing that really is in there, as I said, is just people in imminent danger from a dam break and water things, but it doesn't go into specifics for, like the mayor said, oxygen or the elderly or things like that. So that is something that needs to be addressed.
Have we ever had an emergency where we had to implement the plan or activate the plan?
Not since I've been here, but before then.
About
The fire.
Oh,
Stavros.
the fire at Stavros.
Hotel.
Yeah, they would
And
have
that
had
would-
incident command with fire and police on that. And then, right. We did for water.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
town contacted them out for water, but that was the only plan we didn't
Yeah.
fire and police done the incident command for the incident, but not as a town, not as a town wide,
Okay.
other than water.
But they did as a town-wide thing, go through to every resident and bring fire. The,
For the occupants of the building,
Yes.
not for every resident, the occupants of the
yeah, they
building.
came door to door and gave, the
Smoke detector.
smoke detector.
Oh,
He went through the whole town, I think, didn't they? After the fire.
They did. And they went door to door and were handing out smoke detectors, I remember.
Maybe we need to do a mock exercise.
Well, in the training that I've been speaking with, excuse me, Frederick County, they don't really, I mean, I'm sure we could do a mock, but one of the part of the training is they will come in and we round table scenarios. So they will just come up with all types of different scenarios. What would you do? And then as a group, we're going to think about it and come up with it. And then they're going to help us from there. But the training looks like it's going to be really good. So.
Excellent. And then one final thought, MML now has an emergency managers department that's exactly for this purpose, for emergency preparedness. And each town can have a liaison and they meet once a month. And they provide some really helpful, valuable information.
All right, I will look into that if that's something I can sign up for right on the site or contact someone.
Yeah.
I will
the
work on that.
Acronym is EMOD.
I did sit on that briefly when I first got hired as town manager, their emergency, what did you call it? They changed the name on me.
Emergency
Managers Department, but I
Right.
know it's also emergency preparedness. They
Yes.
use all different terms, but I think
But
this is a new
EMOD?
startup with a bunch of really great individuals
Yeah, I
on
sat
it.
on it briefly. They met one Saturday every month down in Annapolis. It's a great organization. They've come up with some great things.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
And this is online. They meet monthly via Zoom or
I know.
Microsoft. I attended one and I thought it was a lot of great information.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the information.
Well, it's some of the stuff isn't. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a long ways to go, but we're going to get there.
I think the only question I have is going back to residents should be self-sustaining for 3 days. Does that mean just in food or in water or electricity?
Food, water,
Medicine.
medicine, electricity, oxygen, pet food, you name it. Anything that you need to live on now, you should have 3 days worth. But
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that more because I don't
It's a
know how many
standard.
people who have generators if the power were to be out for 3 days.
that's standard. That's just a standard.
Oh, I know.
And all, yeah, but it's.
Yeah, but I mean, it
lot of-
practicality in reality, like what is that going to look like? But we could hypothesize all night, so
Okay.
we won't do that right now.
okay.
Um,
But that's a great idea to do training. And you said September was the emergency preparedness campaign. Okay.
okay, I know we also have Ms. Walbrecker
Okay.
who signed up for public comment. If you would like to
I
come
will
up.
switch. I'll sit here because I'm up next.
Thank you.
I left the speaker on.
Diane Walbrecker, Main Street, Emmitsburg. Great. I'm glad you guys are looking at this. And in terms of what I meant about the fire, you guys, was that there was a lot of need for the residents. American Red Cross came in at first, but then the Lions Club and all the civic organizations got together to provide bedding for the people, help with housing and all sorts of things. So that's also part of an emergency operations plan. But I've got, I just read this. I've got a whole page of notes of things I have questions about. that, I'd be happy to, if you guys want me to, I'd be happy to work with Brandy individually. I actually teach how to write emergency operations plans up there to hundreds of people. So I do this on a regular basis. Training for the staff is going to be very important. And there's some online courses that can be taken. And I was looking for the Fairfax, Frederick County Emergency Operations Plan online, and I didn't see it online.
Yeah, it isn't there. My understanding is they're redoing it for this year.
Okay.
And they have a new director. I cannot think of his name. I apologize.
Antonio,
No.
I think. Clayton. Anyway, I'm going to the LEPC meeting, Local Emergency Planning Commission meeting this Wednesday. Now that typically deals with hazmat releases. Like if we had a truck going through and we had a hazmat issue, LEPCs are specifically for that. But I can ask a lot of questions about the Frederick County plan then. And I'm just saying, I'm happy to help with whatever. I mean, at some point, and I've been talking about this with the recovery, we also need to figure out, what our connection is with Mount St. Mary's, what our connection is with the National Emergency Training Center in terms of emergency operations, and how we would meld in with their plans or take advantage of their facilities for an emergency. I mean, there's so much richness here that we can dig into and make it better. So I guess I'm just asking if it's okay, if I can, maybe work with Brandy, based on Kathy's oversight to make sure I don't ask too much, but I'm happy to help. I mean, we have the Training Institute right here with everything and exercises that we can do. So I'd be happy to help with that. And I'm happy to share this page with you guys, but it probably won't mean a lot. So.
Well, I would say certainly share that page so that everybody has it. And it's really nice to have a resource right here in town, so close to us, and that we have available to us with any questions or comments or ideas. So I thank you for offering your services and assistance. And I appreciate your time tonight. It looks like you had a lot to share. So
I do. It's not much time. So
yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
And I don't want to take up a lot of time with a lot of details that.
Sure. But always feel free to share it via email with the council too, so that, we can learn more about what's in your head.
Yeah, but I think it's great that you guys are doing this and taking it seriously. So thank you.
Thank you. Did you have anything to?
No, just the next agenda item.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? Ooh, okay. So it looks like we're looking for approval of the plan.
Well, how about I make the corrections, or, change for the ambulance company, Vigilant Hose. And
they can formally adopt it with those
changes upcoming.
Modifications. Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioners, is there a motion to approve the Town of Emmitsburg action plan? Is that what it's called? Action plan?
Yeah, emergency operations plan.
Emergency operations plan. Thank you.
I'll make a motion.
With the changes that were presented during the meeting. Commissioner Hoover, I heard you say you're going to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the proposed Emmitsburg emergency operations plans as discussed and updated this evening.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Further questions or comments at this time? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstain? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. And moving on to presentation of the Maryland Main Street program.
Okay. There's so much information on this. I'm just touching base on a little bit of information. kind of the steps that we need to take from here if we are going to be going forward. And I also brought for each of you, if you would like, a copy of the application. So it kind of even goes into more details of some of the steps that we need to take before going any further. Right now, we are an official affiliate, and that does give us some perks. If we want to go any further in this process, the first thing we absolutely have to do is either hire or designate a Main Street manager. Now, if you'd like to transfer some of my duties for that specifically, I can do both jobs. However, I would need an actual designated title in addition to the town operations. The other title would have to be Main Street manager, and I would have to dedicate 20 to 25 hours a week solely to the Main Street program. So we can't just take away what I'm doing now and just change my title altogether, because then I couldn't do any of these other items, that projects that I'm working at that doesn't pertain to the Main Street. So at some point, if either designate myself or if we hire somebody part-time to do so, but that will need to be done. Also needed funding. Initial funding would be from the town, like a startup of a business. The town usually starts up the fund, and we would need to demonstrate a sustainable funding program for our Main Street program. Now, a lot of it would be on grants and money we would get from the Main Street program, but we also have to show how we are going to fund ourselves. And I'll get to that in a moment. Also needed are committees, fundraisers, projects, a board of commissioners. So those are the three things that we are lacking at the moment. And if I go into the application, let me just give you a couple areas that we're lacking, that not lacking, but we need to work on if we're going to go forward. We must have a defined central business district with a concentration of commercial buildings. I'm trying to determine what they mean by concentration. What's the ratio? So there's a lot of vagueness to this. We do need to demonstrate a commitment to employ a Main Street manager, which I briefly discussed, and commitment to the Main Street program, and to demonstrate a commitment to organize and maintain volunteer committees made up of all of our stakeholders, public and private. So those are the things that we would really need to begin to try to even go forward out of the affiliate stage, which we would still need 3 to 5 years. This is a long process, but for us to continue and go forward towards that goal, some of these things need to be met before myself or anybody else can go. Benefits of the program, we all know, is more grants available. An example is, as an affiliate, the Main Street improvement grant allocation, we get about $10,000 a year. If we were designated Main Street, it bumps up to $25,000. That's just a small fraction. There are many more grants, a lot more money if we become a full designated Main Street. The community pride, community engagement, improve Main Street appearance, increase tourism, attract business, keep business, far more resources. Again, if we become a designated as compared to being an affiliate right now. The things that we do need to consider, the board of directors and committees needs to be active. And right now we're having trouble filling, the community action committees, green team, several other things. So I think that is where we're going to run into trouble. We do see a lack of participation by businesses and residents, and we must demonstrate a commitment to these said committees. That's going to be one of our problems right now. I've had businesses stated that they're not really in favor of the program. We already have too much government. We have residents that think we should absolutely be a part of it. Others want us to concentrate fully on the water issues, even though I've explained it's apples and oranges. There's 2 different fundings, 2 different everything, but the water is a big thing. Let's see, the basic day-to-day operations of the Main Street program is partially funded by donations from businesses and residents. And we have such a limited number of each, and we're always asking the same businesses and residents for help with their different projects. And so that might, be a problem as well. So some of my recommendations, and others I've discussed with, is we do want to go forward, but maybe for the time being, let's concentrate on being an affiliate until we get more businesses in town. Maybe some of the subdivisions or anything start to come to fruition. And there's other things that I can work on to get us towards that vacant property issues. I'm working on some proposals for taxes and things like that to work on our vacant properties, rental registration, all these not little, but other aspects that we can do working as a town does push us closer to maybe getting some of these vacant buildings no longer vacant. Let's get businesses in there. And, so I'm kind of not at a standstill, but would like some direction from you all and from the mayor is, if you would want me to become the designated Main Street manager part-time, in addition to what I'm doing, just split the title, or do we wait a little bit to try to get these vacant buildings under control and just concentrate on the affiliate status? I know I rambled quickly and a lot of information, but that's kind of where I'm at. We're going to work on pursuing the grants that we can, but there is more money if we become a designated Main Street, but there are a lot of steps to get there. And I'm not sure if I should keep going, plugging away at them, or start at some of these other projects that will help lead us to there in the end, the end run.
Well, I feel like if, as far as designating any of your time, or whether or not part of the responsibility, we hire a part-time person for that responsibility, would only come after the decision was made that we want to submit an application to Indeed.
Oh yeah, we're quite away from even submitting the application.
Yes.
But if we want to continue to pursue some of these as an actual designated Main Street person, we do need somebody designated as the Main Street manager.
Right.
And it's, I believe a town our size is either 20 or 25 hours. I'd have to double check. And that's fine. I can absolutely split my time, but it can't be my sole position. Otherwise, I couldn't work on any other projects.
Right.
So that's where you got to find the balance.
So are you looking for direction tonight as far as
No.
that goes?
I'm just putting it out there.
Sure. Okay.
And then maybe later we can have a roundtable or another discussion,
Mhm.
at the direction of you and the mayor.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Because I know a lot of people are in favor of the Main Street program, and I get asked a lot of questions. Well, what are we doing? What are we doing? Well, there's a lot to do, but there's a lot that needs.
Well, and it's not something that just happens
No,
overnight.
it's a long process.
If I could make a recommendation, I
Sure.
think the first step is not naming her anything. But two is gauging the support. If you don't have the support of
And
your
that's-
residents and you don't have the support of your businesses and because they're the ones that are going to have to run it, that you guys as the board
Mhm.
don't have any say in it.
Mhm.
We don't have, mayor doesn't have any say in it. That if you don't have that support, it's a waste of time for us to take 25% of her time away to do anything or to
Correct,
invest
yeah.
any more money. Now, how do you gauge the support? I don't know.
And that's a hard one. It is.
Um,
But if you look at some of our other committees that we're still struggling to fill,
Yeah.
and it's always the same people and businesses that are tasked. And it's wonderful. I'm glad that we have that support,
Mhm.
but it's
Limited.
a lot. It's a lot.
Right.
Limit.
I mean, and there are a lot of questions I have about Main Street program in general,
Me
but I
too.
think they're kind of a moot point at this stage in the game.
It really is. And if you look through the application, there's a lot, and it's absolutely obtainable, just not right now. But even if we were to say, okay, Brandy, you're going to be the manager 25 hours a week on this, it's still going to take 3 to 5 years at a minimum. It's not a quick process. We have to become a 5-3 CO1. Well, I always get that acronym or the numbers mixed up, but there's a lot of steps. But as Ms. Willett said, if we are not going to have the support and the real commitment of these businesses and their stakeholders, then we're dead in the water.
And that was one thing I wanted to ask you, because it did say, I'm sorry, I need my reading glasses, that the day-to-day operations of the Main Street program is partially funded by donations from businesses and residents.
Yes.
What exactly does that mean?
You need their support.
Well, I
Yeah.
know
So we
support,
are going to
but
get,
I mean, as far as money
it's
goes, what-
fundraising. What they want to see is your plan on raising money for your own Main Street program. Of course, we're going to get money from them. And there is a monetary requirement. They don't say how much, but from the town. But the rest of it is fundraising. So you need fundraising teams. So in addition to the fundraising for the turkey trot and the food bank and the Seton Center and the breast cancer awareness and all these other things, we're going to have to show regular fundraising ways that we're going to sustain our own Main Street program. And it could be by volunteer. I mean, businesses cutting checks, but most of them do fundraising projects. And that's part of the board of commissioners that want to be in the Main Street program. It is not, so if I am the manager, I'm not running any committees or fundraising. That's everybody else.
right.
So it's a lot of people involved in this. And, you know, they use Brunswick a lot as an example. Brunswick has done a great turnaround revitalization. And that's what we love here, but Brunswick has a MARC train, has more Main Streets, more businesses. So I really think we need to concentrate on the vacants and getting more, getting that handled, getting more businesses in here. And then the snowball effect will continue.
Well, and that's something I think is interesting when you said the concentration of businesses, as far as how do they define that?
Yeah.
I mean, and if we're even eligible.
I know that we are. I do know that after speaking with Ms. Grinder and several people in the Main Street program, but I still don't have a clear, well, what is concentration of businesses? Is it, because most of our Main Street is residential, or a good portion of it. So I'm still trying to figure that one out. And it's hard to get a clear answer.
Okay. All right. I agree. Questions, comments, commissioners, Commissioner Turnquist?
I was going to say, I've always been in favor of the Main Street program because I thought it would support our businesses. But now, after all of this, which is really valuable information, I'm not so sure. I mean, I don't think we have enough businesses right now because we have too many vacant buildings. Businesses for the most part aren't behind this right now.
Right now, the few that I've gotten feedback from are not.
And this would just be the businesses on Main Street though, correct? Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, the Main Street program has done wonderful things that you feel at Thermont, but they've been in 10 years in. Brunswick is another one. They've done wonderful things. But their Main Streets are a little bigger. The towns are set up differently. And, we all talk about, the boutiques and the stores in the bottom half of the businesses, like it used to be, even, in the apartments above, like at E Plus or the tattoo shop. I mean, that's great. But we need to get to the point where how do we get them to do that? So,
right.
And part of it, I think, is also going to tie into just the housing issues. So I think there's some things that we need to figure out before going first. The rental registration, the vacant property registration, student housing. I think all of that needs to get figured out for us to,
well, and that's
keep
part
going.
of the question I had too, is how would student housing affect this? Not that I'm asking, don't worry.
I don't think
need
it
you to
does.
respond right now.
Yeah,
but
I don't think it does.
Cause as far as looking at residents, like if somebody sells their house, what are the options for somebody to turn that into a business? Or right now, is it limited for residential? I mean, it's zoned as residential. I mean, can it be flipped into a business? I don't know.
Village zone can. It's mixed use.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
that's good to know. I mean,
but if they're all bought up as they become vacant and turned into student housing, that doesn't really leave a lot for the businesses. So there's this balance there.
right.
But I agree.
Student housing is the business.
No, it's a business for the investor. I don't see it as a business or providing service or goods to the town.
Yeah.
Personally, but as far as I like the idea of let's target those vacant buildings. I mean, they've been an eyesore on Main Street for how many years now? Try to bring in more businesses who are willing to come to Main Street.
I think once the mayor, Ms. Willets, and I are working on the vacant property, the ordinances, taxes, several things are being worked on and will be presented to you, I think within a short time, a couple months. Some really good ideas. But I think that if we get those things handled, they're prime locations. I just get some businesses in there, you know.
And I think you're right with additional developments too. We might have some,
Little more-
fresh energy to.
And again, it wouldn't be the same people that were
Right.
always asking for financial help, for join a committee, just, and I'm glad that we have those businesses and the people who do sign up for everything, but
They do get
the-
hit a lot.
the Main Street program is going to be a bigger commitment, and I think we can do it. I don't think right now is the time. Being affiliate, I think works for us, and we need to just start knocking down these other projects and things to help us, excuse me, get on that more clear path.
Do you have a considerable amount of your time right now that has to be designated for the affiliate?
No,
portion?
no, and I've been
Okay.
Najila and Maddie have been helping me since it's so new to me. Going to trainings and meetings and working on what grants we can get. They've been very helpful.
Okay.
So no, I'm working on that just fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, Thermont's been helpful. I mean, she's reached out to all of our businesses.
she's
and
wonderful.
Invited to the monthly meetings. I get her
Yes.
email from her every month. Hey, are you coming?
Yes. And
Where are you and Don?
And once we do get going and get some of these hurdles, I would like to have Ms. Grinder come in and speak. She's wonderful. She's an expert. And that's who I go to.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
there's a lot of benefit to the program, but it's a big hurdle for that our businesses now, and we've struggled the last 2 years getting them more motivated. I think as you're more aware than most of us of all that banging against the wall that's been happening to try to get that. So I think it's the best, it's that slow approach to keep bringing it in, because it is getting the businesses involved rather than just, I don't like this.
Right. And that's why I really wanted to present it to you all tonight, because I do get a lot of questions on, well, where are we at? Where are we at?
Yeah.
That is a loaded question. So
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to let you know I'm working on these things. I'm kind of at a standstill in some areas.
I think these insights are so valuable because I've learned a lot just from these insights, and I agree with your suggestions on how to move forward. I'm not sure that we're ready for this at the moment.
But again, we are an affiliate, and that does get us some grants, some help, and that's been good so far.
Well, and I also like how we're not eliminating the possibility. We
Oh,
just
no,
are
no.
recognizing we need to take steps in the meantime, and there are things that we can clean up on our end as far as vacant buildings and whatnot. And knowing with potential growth, there might be additional opportunities there. So I agree. I think that your information was extremely helpful. So thank you for your time looking into that. And I'm good with your suggestions for now. I like those. What do you think, Commissioner Sweeney?
So I don't think we're ready yet either. And
I just kind of want to
starting
clear.
out, small, work your way up is the best thing.
Commissioner Hoover?
I agree. Right now is not the right time, but maybe in the future.
All right. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Okay, our last agenda item was tentative, which was discussion related to sewer or water and sewer tap fees. We had it as tentative because we didn't know if we were going to have time to get to it tonight, but we did just receive the information today.
Do you want me to highlight a little bit of what they sent?
As long, maybe.
Because you
maybe
can't really
like
do a discussion. I know the board
Yeah.
just got it today.
What I would like maybe to do is maybe if you highlight some of what's in there, but can we also move the discussion tack it on to our workshop. Because I think our workshop right now is only student housing coming up next week.
Student housing and rental registration.
Oh, yeah, but those go hand in hand. All right, we'll talk about that later. But if you would like to do maybe a 5 minute,
I'm good.
yeah, you watch that clock.
Yeah, so I reached out to RK&K is our engineer that we have under general contract because they had done some of the review of Christ Community Church and the connection fee. So they were aware of the board's questions related to that. So they went and did a review of our current water and sewer connections and basically how the town calculates connection fees based off a fixture chart. As we know, 15 fixtures equals 1 residential unit per our town code. We did a water and rate study back in 2022. At the time, the study deemed the connection fees for water and wastewater were appropriate to support the capital growth. They did look into, they researched Thermont, City of Frederick County, and Anne Arundel County. Based on their research, they found connection fees range anywhere between $13,400 and $18,750 on combined water and connection fees, excuse me. Long story short, without going through this, their basic recommendation is tied to what Frederick County does. So Frederick County and the town of Emmitsburg are the only ones that currently use the fixture chart. As we know, Frederick County uses a capacity reduction factor that the town of Emmitsburg does not. They go through why that's really not a good idea, why you have just a fixture chart, and how you establish equivalent residential units using the average daily water usage. So basically, just long story short, they came up with their own fixture chart, which is on page 3. It lists out the type of establishment, what equates for a dwelling unit or an ERU factor, and then they set that equivalent or the reduction factor based off of the type of usage. So for like a church, excluding schools, they have a seat at a 0.012 ERU factor. But basically, on their summary on page 5, it says that RK&K estimates ERUs using adjustment factors similar to those outlined in table 1. There may be instances where connections need to be evaluated on case by case basis if it's not a normal establishment, such as the distillery. Nobody really has an adjustment factor for a distillery, so you'd have to do that on a case by case basis. Estimate ERUs based on actual usage, anticipated usage, peak load requirements, and a combination. For establishments that are not listed, an ERU could be defined based on the average daily water use in the municipality. Their recommendation is that we base our connection capacity fees based on how we determine an ERU and the adjustment factors like outlined in table 1. We would have to update the ordinance, obviously. And they also recommend establishing an ERU based upon average gallons per day determined from actual town billing records for residential use. Currently, we use 250 gallons per day. That's basically what the state says. And then it says, note that the impact to the town's overall revenue would not be known without updated rate and connection capacity fee studies. So basically, their recommendation is, yes, you can stay with the fixture chart, but you need to update your fixture chart and you need to add a capacity reduction factor to make it fair across the board. Without reading everything in here, that's basically that in a nutshell.
Well, that's their recommendation. They're not saying you need to.
No, that's their recommendation based off of their research.
That's the part we probably don't have time to dive into tonight. That I mean, I appreciate their. I mean, okay.
So Frederick County and Emmitsburg are the only ones that use fixture charts. Everybody else does.
That I know. I'm just wondering if they gave us any information that we didn't already know. Like, we knew it was an option to go to this. I think the one piece that's missing though is the state of our water fund compared to,
Well, that's what they're saying on that
Yeah.
last one is that, and I tend to agree with them. I mean, the water and sewer rate study that we did, it was presented in 2022. I think the numbers were generated off of 2021. So you're talking 4 years ago. Is there another rate study that needs to be done? You know, that's up for the board to decide. But I think that's what they're saying is you're going to have to look at the overall revenue to know how it's going to impact our water fund and our sewer fund.
yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, we just said not too many meetings ago that, you know, looking at our water costs, even if we were to keep the 36% over the next 5 years, we potentially will never get ahead of how much we owe or how much work needs to be done. And therefore, should that be placed back on the businesses and the residents when we know is kind of like, we're never going to get there. So at the same time, looking at the big pieces, how does that impact our water fund? So, and which we don't know, but would definitely need to be looked at.
And if you don't have development, then you don't have the connection fees. So it's finding that right balance
Right.
of what's best for the overall revenue, but what also isn't going to drive development away.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. Commissioners, I know that was a really quick recap. That was just for us to think about. Realistically, what does our agenda look like for February? Is that something we could bump into in case student housing and rental registration goes the entire time?
So if you decide from your workshop to move forward with either one of those ordinances, that would have to be done at the February meeting to officially adopt the ordinances related to student housing and or the rental registration. Other than that, I have the presentation of the current draft of the 2025 comprehensive plan update. Nigelia is going to go more into depth, excuse me. And then 2 other smaller items.
So if, let's say, if we do move forward with student housing and the rental registration, does that require a public hearing?
Yes, that would require a public hearing in February.
Okay.
For the student housing. Student housing requires a public hearing, the other one does not.
Right.
And
Okay. So we won't know that until we workshop it.
right.
Okay. Okay. I say we tackle student housing separately. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth putting student housing and water on the same night because those seem like 2 really big topics. Commissioners, I'm looking for feedback.
I think we hold this to February. We're talking 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
So only 2 weeks away,
All right. So
3 weeks, something like that.
for discussion of the what is it called? The water and sewer tap fees. So can we just come back to this then in the agenda in February? And yeah, we'll have to see if we have any resolution on the student housing. Are we good with coming back to water and sewer fees at the February meeting? Anybody? Feedback? The first one, February 3rd. Which isn't that far away. That gives you time to review the information. I just don't want to put the water and sewer onto our workshop and then not get to it again. That would be frustrating.
Yeah, and if you have time to review it, send any questions that you might have or anything else you want staff to look into in addition to the engineer's recommendation, and then we can have it ready for that meeting.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I can send an email because it's similar to Frederick County in that they use an adjustment factor, but it's different in the sense that it's not based on fixture units. It's based on how many seats you have in the restaurant or how many chairs you have in the church. So I think it might be helpful. And again, I'll email you to see it like a list of for the costs that we already know for tap fees that let's say what we've done over the past year for the church and Federal Stone. If we could see what those fees are versus what the fees would be under this new plan.
Okay.
That's being proposed, because I don't know how I would make the computation for like, for instance, for the church. I know it's on here, but it's not alphabetical. For churches, it says the unit is per seat and the factor is 0.12. Well, if there's 198 seats, how do you do the math to figure out what the cost of the water fee would be? I don't know.
Right.
And it's
I'm
based on
sure it's a simple
capacity.
formula.
So the seat equates to capacity of the building, I'm assuming, and not currently filled seats. I mean, that's a question too. I'm
Right.
assuming that's what it is, but I don't want to assume.
Yeah, so any questions you might have, just send them my way and then I can work on that for that meeting.
I mean, my big one is how is this going to impact our bottom line?
Which unfortunately, that's kind of an unknown because you don't know what development you're going to have. Unfortunately.
Right. But assuming no development, what does this do? I mean, like, this is going to change potentially a lot of water bills. Correct?
This is only for development. So this would only change for a developer.
Oh,
This
only
is not
for
water
new?
rates.
This is the connection.
Oh,
These
the
are connection fees.
connection.
Yeah, they're
Gosh
connection
almighty, I'm
fees.
thinking of something completely different. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome. So that's what I mean by unknown, because
Gotcha.
I mean, we haven't had much development.
Understood. Understood.
But I agree with Commissioner Turnquist. I think we need to compare to where we are now, what we use now and what we use with, if we would adopt this new
Right.
formula.
Right.
So if you get us some examples of that, that'd be
Mhm.
great.
Yeah. Yep. Sounds good. All right. And we'll send any other questions your way, but that clarification helps a lot. Thank you, Ms. Willits. Anyone else? Okay. So again, setting the agenda for February 3rd. So you said there was the comp plan presentation update.
So I have, here, I can read you what I have. I have, February 3rd for consideration approval of the Catoctin Football Club proposal to convert field number 1 from baseball to soccer field. Number 2 would be for consideration approval of bid for the 2025 through 2027 pool management contract. And then I have, if needed, hold public hearing. Well, for consideration, hold public hearing and approval of ordinance 25-02, amending town code to allow and establish requirements for student housing. Number 4 would be for consideration approval of ordinance 25-03, amending town code to establish a rental registration program. Number 5 would be presentation of the current draft of the 2025 comprehensive plan update. And then number 6 would be discussion related to water and sewer tap fees.
Okay. All right. Any questions regarding the agenda? Okay. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented? And it's okay for us to list public hearing and rental registration as tentative based on the outcome of the workshop. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for February 3rd as outlined?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Motion carries 5-0. And with that, we can adjourn the meeting at, what is it? Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
All right, thank you. So Commissioner Sweeney, I will take that as moved, and Commissioner Hagan, would that be a second?
Yep.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned at 9:07 PM or 9:08.